In 2012, the world watched a man in sunglasses gallop like an invisible horse. And for a moment, nobody understood what was happening. It wasn't English, it wasn't polished K-pop, it wasn't a carefully crafted global strategy. It was absurd, and it was unstoppable. Gangnam Style didn't just go viral, it broke YouTube, literally. When the music video surpassed 2.1 billion views, YouTube had to upgrade its view counter because it wasn't designed to handle numbers that large. But here's the part most people forget. Before PSY became the first YouTube billionaire in views, before stadiums chanted Oppa Gangnam Style, before world leaders danced awkwardly to his song, he was considered a problem. Park Jae-sang, better known as PSY, was born in 1977 in Seoul into a wealthy family. His father was a successful businessman. By all expectations, PSY was supposed to inherit stability, structure, and corporate leadership. Instead, he chose chaos. While studying in the United States, he developed a deep interest in music production. But instead of becoming a technically perfect pop idol, PSY leaned into exaggeration. Over-the-top facial expressions, loud delivery, unapologetic satire. He wasn't trying to look cool, he was trying to make a point. And in early 2000s, South Korea, that didn't always go well. His debut album in 2001 was controversial. Authorities fined him for inappropriate content. Critics labeled him crude. Parents complained. He was not the clean-cut idol industry preferred. PSY didn't look like other K-pop stars. He wasn't sculpted, sharp-jawed, or fashion model thin. He danced aggressively, sweated excessively, yelled enthusiastically. In an industry built on perfection, PSY built his identity on excess, and that made him both fascinating and difficult. Then came military service, twice, yes, twice. PSY initially completed mandatory military service, but was later accused of neglecting duties while working in entertainment. His exemption was revoked, and he had to re-enlist. Public criticism was harsh. In South Korea, military service is serious. It's not optional. Re-enlistment wasn't just inconvenient, it was reputational damage. At that point, many careers would quietly fade. PSY didn't fade. He recalibrated. Instead of trying to compete with idol groups on visuals, he sharpened satire. Instead of chasing perfection, he amplified absurdity. Instead of resisting criticism, he weaponized it. Which brings us to 2012. Gangnam Style wasn't random. It was satire aimed at the flashy lifestyle of Seoul's wealthy Gangnam district. The lyrics mocked social status obsession. The visuals exaggerated luxury to the point of comedy. International audiences didn't understand the lyrics. They didn't need to. The energy translated, the confidence translated, the horse dance translated. And suddenly, a man once criticized domestically became the face of a global internet revolution. But here's the question. Was PSY a joke that went too far? Or was he a genius who understood the internet before the industry did? Because breaking YouTube is one thing, surviving after breaking it is another, and that's where the real story begins. When Gangnam Style was released in July 2012, nobody at YG Entertainment gathered in a meeting room and said, "Yes, this is the song that will change global pop culture forever." If anything, it was probably more like, "This is interesting." The music video opens with PSY lying dramatically on what looks like a luxury beach. It's not a beach, it's a playground sandbox. That was the first clue. This wasn't just a song, it was satire disguised as chaos. At first, the reaction in South Korea was strong but familiar. PSY had always been known for theatrical, exaggerated performances. Gangnam Style fit his brand, loud, flashy, ridiculous on purpose. But then something unusual happened. International viewers clicked. They didn't understand the lyrics. They didn't understand Gangnam. They didn't even fully understand why a grown man in sunglasses was aggressively riding an invisible horse. But they watched. and then they shared, and then they watched again. Within weeks, celebrities began tweeting the video. T-Pain posted about it, Britney Spears mentioned it. Suddenly, the horse dance was no longer just a Korean meme, it was a global movement. Let's pause here. This was 2012, TikTok didn't exist, Instagram Reels didn't exist, the algorithm was not yet the chaotic monster it is today, and yet PSY managed to hijack the entire internet. The numbers climbed at a speed YouTube had never seen, millions, then hundreds of millions, then a billion. When the video hit 1 billion views, it was the first video in history to ever do so. And YouTube had a problem. Their view counter was capped at 2,147,483,647, the maximum value for a 32-bit signed integer. PSY exceeded it. Imagine being so viral that a tech company has to rewrite code because of you. That's not just success, that's digital vandalism. Suddenly, PSY was invited everywhere. He performed at the MTV Europe Music Awards, he danced with celebrities, he visited the White House. Even world leaders awkwardly attempted the horse dance. And through it all, PSY maintained the same energy. Chaotic, self-aware, slightly sweaty. Here's the genius part. He knew people were laughing. He just made sure they were laughing with him, not at him. Because satire only works when the creator understands the joke better than the audience does. But fame at that scale is dangerous. The internet builds you up quickly. It also moves on quickly. After the billion views, the interviews, the award shows, the memes, one question began circling like a vulture. Was PSY just a one-hit wonder? Because breaking the internet is impressive, but surviving after the internet is bored. That's the real challenge. And PSY was about to find out whether he had created a moment or a legacy. There is a special kind of pressure reserved for people who accidentally become global phenomena. It's called, okay, now what? After Gangnam Style broke YouTube, PSY wasn't just a Korean artist anymore. He was a meme, a movement, a ringtone, a dance challenge before dance challenges were officially a thing. And the world waited. Because the internet has the attention span of a goldfish on espresso. Everyone asked the same question, can he do it again? In 2013, PSY released Gentleman. The hype was enormous. News outlets covered the release like it was a tech product launch. Millions of people clicked the video within hours. It broke viewing records for fastest video to reach 100 million views, which sounds amazing. Except, it wasn't Gangnam Style, and that was the problem. Gentleman was catchy. It was energetic. It had another ridiculous dance, but it lacked the surprise factor. Gangnam Style worked because no one saw it coming. Gentleman arrived with expectations heavy enough to crush a smaller artist. And expectations are loud. Every article compared numbers. Every chart comparison became a scoreboard. Instead of celebrating millions of views, headlines asked, is PSY already fading? Imagine going from Internet King to Is He Over in less than a year. That's the danger of peak virality. You don't compete with others. You compete with your own explosion. PSY responded the only way he knew how, with more absurdity. Daddy in 2015 was wild, strange, and visually chaotic. Face-swapping effects, over-the-top dancing, a chorus that drilled itself into your brain whether you invited it or not. It did well. But again, nothing could eclipse the horse dance. And slowly, something interesting happened. The noise faded. The world moved on to the next viral sensation. For many artists, that would be the quiet decline phase. The awkward, remember that guy, chapter. But here's where PSY surprised everyone. He stopped trying to beat Gangnam Style. He accepted it. In interviews, he openly admitted that topping that song might be impossible. And instead of chasing the ghost of a billion views, he shifted his focus. He returned to what he understood best, performance. In South Korea, PSY was never just a one-hit wonder. His concerts were legendary long before 2012. Massive water cannons, explosive stage production, energy that lasted hours, sweat levels scientifically concerning. He leaned into live shows. He leaned into authenticity. He leaned into the fact that while the world might see him as a viral memory, Korea still saw him as PSY, the entertainer. And then he made his boldest move yet. He left YG Entertainment, and instead of quietly fading into nostalgia, he built something new. Because maybe the real genius move wasn't breaking the internet. Maybe it was understanding that virality is temporary, but infrastructure lasts. And that's when PSY stopped being just an artist and started becoming a kingmaker. Here's the thing about being a global meme. You either become a trivia question or you become a boss. After the world slowly stopped galloping in sync, many people assumed PSY would gently fade into Remember 2012 territory. You know, the category reserved for Harlem Shake and Ice Bucket Challenge nostalgia. But PSY did something unexpectedly strategic. He stopped trying to outrun Gangnam Style. Instead, he built a kingdom. In 2019, PSY founded P Nation. Now, let's pause and appreciate the audacity of that move. This is the same man people labeled a one-hit wonder outside Korea. The same guy whose signature dance involved pretending to ride an invisible horse. And now he was launching his own entertainment company in an industry dominated by giants. Bold, very bold. And then he did something even bolder. He signed artists who were considered complicated. Hyuna and Dawn, controversial power couple who had just left Cube Entertainment. Jessie, loud, unapologetic, and allergic to being subtle. These weren't safe idol picks. These were personalities. PSY wasn't building a factory. He was building a playground, and his message was clear. Be weird, I did. Under P Nation, artists weren't stripped of their quirks. If anything, they were encouraged to amplify them. Jessie became even more outspoken. Hyuna leaned further into bold aesthetics. The label's identity wasn't clean-cut perfection. It was personality-driven chaos, but organized chaos, which is honestly the most PSY thing imaginable. And then, just when people had settled into the idea that PSY was now a behind-the-scenes executive in sunglasses, he came back. In 2022, PSY released That, produced by and featuring Suga of BTS. Now, let's appreciate the layers here. PSY, the man who once broke YouTube, collaborating with a member of the biggest K-pop group in the world. It wasn't desperation, it wasn't nostalgia, it was synergy. The song was playful, energetic, self-aware. The choreography was ridiculous, of course. The music video looked like two generations of K-pop meeting in a desert and deciding to just have fun. And it worked. That topped charts. It trended globally. But more importantly, it didn't feel like PSY was chasing youth. It felt like PSY saying, I'm still here, and I still know how to make this fun. Because that's the secret. PSY understands spectacle. He understands that entertainment isn't about perfection, it's about impact. His summer concerts in Korea, known as Psy Summer Swag, are legendary for one specific reason: water cannons. Massive, relentless, borderline flood-level water cannons. Other artists give you light sticks. PSY gives you a monsoon. He performs for hours, drenched, exhausted, still yelling, still jumping, still somehow defying physics and cardiovascular expectations. That's not nostalgia, that's stamina. By this point, PSY was no longer just the man who broke YouTube. He was a cultural architect, a disruptor who survived disruption, a viral phenomenon who built infrastructure. And perhaps the most ironic twist of all, the industry that once questioned whether he was too much now celebrates him for exactly that. Too loud, too sweaty, too dramatic, too unforgettable. But the final question remains. When the internet remembers you for one iconic moment, how do you define your legacy beyond it? That answer lies not in the horse dance, but in endurance, and in the fact that more than a decade later, people are still dancing. If you reduce PSY to a man galloping in sunglasses, you miss the point. Yes, Gangnam Style was absurd. Yes, the dance looked like something invented at 2 a.m. after too much caffeine. And yes, millions of people copied it without knowing what Gangnam actually meant. But that's exactly why it mattered. Before PSY, K-pop was growing internationally, but carefully, strategically, gradually. After PSY, the door didn't just open, it flew off its hinges. He proved that language wasn't a barrier, that charisma could translate, that you didn't have to look like a perfectly sculpted idol to command a global stage. He wasn't selling cool, he was selling confidence, and confidence is universal. More importantly, PSY shifted how the industry understood virality. He experienced the highest peak of internet fame and survived the comedown. Instead of chasing another billion-view miracle, he built P Nation. He invested in artists. He created space for individuality in an industry often obsessed with polish. That's not a one-hit wonder, that's evolution. There's something poetic about it. The man once criticized for being too loud, too exaggerated, too much, became the artist who showed that being too much can be exactly enough. More than a meme, more than a viral moment, more than a dance. PSY didn't just break YouTube. He broke the idea that only one type of performer could represent Korea to the world. And more than a decade later, when the beat drops and someone shouts, "Oppa!" people still smile, not because it's nostalgic, because it's unforgettable.